Hello, good evening from here, and warm welcome. Lovely to be connected in the subject today of the Soul Brain Interplay Retreat. And it seems like something from science and spirituality. So very warm welcome to come in camera if you would like to feel part of we're all together, and nice also if you want to share where you're joining from. Sometimes it reminds us how amazing it is that we can be connected. So do feel free. Hopefully you can write in the chat. It's working. I would like to share a couple of quotes. This is a Swiss amateur physicist, Nassim Harimeh, and he says, looking for consciousness in the brain is like looking inside a radio for the announcer. And I really like that because it seems to describe the senselessness in a way. But I'd also like to contrast that with a quote by Richard Dawkins. If you don't know, he's a evolutionary biologist and author. His view: we are survival machines, robot vehicles, blindly programmed to preserve the selfish molecules known as genes. Extraordinary. The way we have different philosophies. And so I see we're joined by Finland, Bahrain, Ireland, Lisbon in Northern Ireland, Italy, Sheffield, Australia, America, South America, Spain, Brazil. So nice. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And I'm going to hand over now to Brother Prashant, and good evening.
Thank you, and hello, and good evening from here. Let us create a few minutes of attention before trying to understand brain. Let us go beyond the body and the brain. Come in that region of silence. And it is amazing. Within a second, we are able to come to that experience, world beyond this physical story. We may experiment with this with the eyes open or eyes closed, whatever that helps the concentration. We see this region in gentle red color. And our next step is we are in that sky. And light is all around us. And we are actively experiencing the light and the color. Very easy way to stop other thoughts. Because mind is busy in experiencing this. And this itself is a big success for anyone. Thank you. In one study, it shows that 95% of our thoughts are cyclical thoughts. And anything that is cyclical, we don't need to think of the same thing 10 times. If your car is going around a block 10 times, it is not achieving much. Creates a problem to other cars also. So also here, when we are in this loop in our thoughts, the system becomes inefficient. So when you are doing something like this for half a minute or 1 minute, its results are longer than a minute. And you will find shift of mood straight away. But also, the cyclical thoughts reduce temporarily. And that's why you will be more efficient. Right now, this effort to begin with makes us more alert. Our grasp will be better. And even if you are doing meditation, it will be easier. Any other practices will be easier. So let us come to another practice. And all along, our aim is to shift from ego consciousness to soul consciousness. Ego is like the embodiment of bondage. Soul is out of the bondage. So it is when we say body consciousness, but that is the same thing. It's the lowest option that anyone has. Soul consciousness is the highest consciousness because it is free. God is God because he is soul conscious. And we heard in the Murli today, it's a game of a second, but done accurately. So let us come to this experience. And what is our aim? The aim of the whole study, spiritual study and practice and Raj Yoga is to be free from bondage, to be free from Ravan, and to be free from sin. That is what we hear from different angles. We want to settle the old account. The obstacles for this are the stone intellect, darkness of ignorance. The stone intellect just limits us in that story. That's why science and all trying to explain everything within that limits. So darkness of ignorance, you are in that confusion. And ego. Ego is stubborn, determined to survive, just like anyone else. So also ego is there with full program to address any dangers. So he wants to be there. These are the challenges. So intelligently we have to approach this. Since the darkness is an obstacle, we can't fight this battle in darkness. We can't win in darkness. But if you create light, you are a winner. Ravan cannot win in light. That is why our first step is see in full clarity. See the big map. That is what the knowledge is about. See the journey of the soul. See the home of the soul. Use Paras intellect. And it's so obvious there is a tiny living soul who has a journey. And he's dealing with a story, temporary story there. He has a world beyond. Now, our next step, let us see the perspective of fully conscious, invisible soul. We call him invisible witness. He is aware of the story, aware that it is not his world. Story is separate. It is a separate reality. We don't create attachments in a story. We don't create any desires in a story. That is confusion to go in that direction. Right now, Prashant is talking. That is happening in the story. At the same time, the invisible witness is aware of the story. He is aware that he is completely independent of the story. Aware of his world beyond. And his world is a complete world. His world is an eternal world. Alaukic, unearthly. World of silence. But he knows he's very, very lucky. Invisible witness is aware that he's lucky. Because his world is a world of joy and love. He needs nothing from anywhere. He is immortal without needing anything. It's just the joy of existence. For him, everyone is lucky. He knows they all are from the same home. They all are immortal and they all are lucky. They just need to become conscious. He knows this. He knows they all are from the family of God and they are loved by God. To be like a tiny point and a presence is normal for him. Only in the story there are gross things. You need masks, gross things in the story. But beyond the story, everything is subtle, alaukic, eternal and divine. He knows everyone is lucky, everyone is immortal, all are beyond harm. And that the universe is positive, immensely beautiful. That's why happiness is natural environment here. Visible witness is the yogi. Only the invisible witness can be soul conscious. Harry cannot become soul conscious because Harry is not a soul. Harry is a role in the story. Only the invisible soul can be yogi. He knows he belongs to God and is loved by God. He is worthy to be loved, worthy to have company of God. He remains free from bondage. Just this full light instantly helps him to understand he's free from the story completely. He remains free from Ravan. Ravan's field of action is that story. He remains free from sin. If Ravan is not there and Ravan is not active, sin continues to be dissolved. Thank you. So we'll come to the subject of today, and let us try and understand the subject of the soul in the context of the brain, and what brain does, what soul does, what mind does. Let's try to understand this. In our past discussion, we have seen that if we represent the entire world by this line, and if there is an insect trying to understand this world, and if he has got just one sense organ, like touch, he will understand a very small part of the world. World is a lot bigger. The world that exists is a lot bigger, represented by that blue line. But because he has got just one sense organ, he can't see the rest. Human beings have got 5 senses, and with my 5 senses, I know more of the world. Some other animals have got other senses, and they see other part of the world. The world that we can see, we call it physical world. And science has evolved. The methodology of science relies upon sense observation. And so science are authorities in that part of the world, physical world. Science has no methodology to study the non-physical part of the world. Non-physical part of the world is a real world. It is just that we have problems. We have no senses to access it. There is no big difficulty in the science world to understand this. This is like a straightforward discussion, understanding in science and in philosophy, that there is an non-physical world, and sometimes it is called unmanifest world, but we have limitations. We don't have senses to see it. Okay, so that's so far so good. Now let us come to the next question. Who is I? And for this, just take your own example. And here we are taking the example of a man who is 70 years of age. And he says he was the same one in school 60 years ago. And you will say the same thing, that you are in school, you are here today. Medical evidence tells us that every atom here is different to every atom here. Even in the 1 year, body is replaced so much, but over a period of 7 years, every atom of the body would be different. The servicing, natural servicing of the body happens at a tremendous rate. So the molecules have changed, atoms have changed, but you will say you are the same person. You were there in school, you are here today. And when you say you are talking about, what are you talking about when you say you? You are talking about the experiencer. This function helps us locate the soul, in other words. So the experiencer was the one who was in school. Experiencer is here right now in front of that computer and seeing this presentation. And this experiencer is not in atoms and molecules because they are replaced. They are completely different. Now, if it is not in the physical, that experiencer, if it is not at this level, molecules and body level, then it has to be in the non-physical part of the world. And that is why we use this symbol of a star and use the language of the soul to define this experiencer. The one that travels from childhood to the adult and remains the same behind. And the body is changing, body is replaced also. But there's something remains the same. And that same is the soul. Just want to add to this, we can use radioisotopes, means molecules with some the isotope, some electron, there is change at that level, but they can be detected, by scanning. And if you inject certain isotopes, those molecules, they have gone into the body, they are in the brain. After 3 days, they are not there. Those same atoms are not there in the brain. In other words, the entire molecular mass of the brain is replaced in 3 days' time. The cell remains the same, but its molecules are replaced. And we get an idea how rapid the servicing is happening in our body. As we breathe in, as we breathe out, constantly molecules are thrown out and new molecules are taken in. So if there is something within us that experiences, based on experience are many other functions. Experience, it affects your emotions. Emotions are also experience. So whoever is experiencer is the one who will have emotions. Based on experience are our memories. We remember things that we have experienced. Based on experience are our habits. Based on experience is our personality. If you are different to your brother, is because what you experienced, that affects your personality, the journey, whatever journey you have. And this whole process of experiencing happens through the medium of thought. So all our essence, the central functions and cognitive functions, they happen in the experiencer. We can say that the driver is the soul, and he is using the body. But we all understand this, but the question arises, how much of the brain, what does the brain do? In this discussion, what we are saying, that the soul is doing all the decision making based on all this, my emotions and habits and memories will be by decision making, So the driver, the manager, the pilot is the soul. And he's using a complex computer, biological computer, to process all this. Just like these days, there are people who got all the technical things, Chat GPT and computers, and he can do many things. He can use all those things and do the work of 10 people, but there is the person who is using those computers, the person who takes the decision. Same happens here. Our brain is immensely intelligent, that it has got it can do many functions simultaneously. Many things can be done, but one who is the ringleader is the soul, and all the functions stay in the soul. They go with the soul. So when a person dies, things go with him. Memory doesn't stay in the brain. Emotions are not staying in the brain. They go with the soul. What happens with the Patthar science? Patthar science means the science that limits themselves to the physical. Or the quote that you heard earlier, human beings are machines, nothing more than a machine. When you die, that is the end of the machine, and they are programmed to behave in a certain way. This kind of a thinking, that is Patthar science. It is also called reductionist science. You have to explain everything at a physical level. And what happens when you are limiting yourselves that way? Then you are attributing to the brain functions that are happening at the level of the soul. All the invisible functions, you are attributing it to the brain. It is a bit like you can't see the person who is speaking. And someone said that nice quote earlier. You can't see the person who is speaking at the radio station. You are attributing to the radio these amazing ideas. This radio is coming out with great ideas. This radio is doing such a wonderful song. You are attributing to the radio what is happening at another level. It is as absurd as that. We are going to see a video right now, and this is a case where soul of one person entered the body of another person. And you will see the case studied by doctors and parapsychologists and followed up over many years. And that situation remained. So we'll just see the case, and one case of this kind gives us an insight into which functions are done by the soul and which functions are done by the brain.
Not all Dr. Pasricha's cases were born with memories of another life. In rural India, she investigated a case of possession, a dead person who appeared to survive by taking over the body of someone else. In May 1985, in the remote village of Sharifpura, a young married woman, Sumitra, had a seizure and seemed to die. Her father saw it happen.
अंदाज डॉक्टर लोगों से लगाया कोई आँख नहीं शरीर नहीं पानी हो चुका था और तैसे ही अंदाज दिया तुम लगा तैसे ही लगाए लोग जा और तक के बाद फिर ये सांसें फांसें इनकी वहीं चली परिचय तब भई जब बात कि ऐसी बात आज गई भी जो कि हम लोगों को नहीं किसी को पहचाना इन्होंने 2-4 दिन किसी को नहीं पहचाना तब हमने खुद बातचीत करी तो कुछ खड़ी बोली आई इनकी बोली में फर्क पड़ा तो इन्होंने कही हमारा तो है नहीं कोई नहीं फिर के ससुराल मेरी दिव्या पर पियर मेरा हटावा जो कभी बहु नहीं कही ससुराल पियर दिया जका बात है.
Sumitra insisted she was this girl, Shiva, a young housewife whose death was reported in some newspapers. Her body with head injuries was found beside a railway near her home. But Shiva had been murdered, claimed Sumitra, and her in-laws had tried to make it look like suicide. There was some effort to bring the husband's family to trial for murder, but there wasn't enough evidence to prove the charge. Shiva's father heard about the girl in the remote village who claimed to be his daughter and went to see her. The girl recognized him immediately and spoke in detail of Shiva's life. She convinced him she was his daughter.
तो फिर थोड़ा हमारे आंसू भी आ गए हमने कि जब इतना बतलाती फिर उसने बच्चों का नाम लिया सब पूरा अपना उसके बाद जो है इस तरह से सब फिर हमने उनसे कहा भी ठाकुर से रुके भी तो दूसरे दिन हम यहाँ लेकर के आए उसे जब यहाँ लेकर के आए तो मैंने वाइफ को जो था अलग बैठा दिया था इसी मकान में थी जब आप आई थी तो मैंने कहा जब उसने देखा तो उसे कोई यही नहीं दिखानी कि मम्मी कहाँ है तो उसने कहा यहाँ तो मम्मी है नहीं हमने कि देखो इन्हीं में बैठी और लेडीज थी सब
वहाँ सब औरतें थी वहाँ बोली कि मम्मी तो यहाँ नहीं है फिर उसके बाद में पिताजी उनके बोले मम्मी को देखो कहाँ है इधर उधर देख के कमरा में पहुंची अंदर हम बैठे थे वहीं जाके मम्मी मम्मी कह के रोने लगी हमारे साथ.
Dr. Pasricha checked Sumitra's statements against published accounts. The girl gave 16 facts about Shiva's life not mentioned in any press reports. Sumitra identified 22 relatives of the dead girl from photographs. 5 years after Sumitra allegedly became possessed by Shiva, we called unannounced at the isolated village where Sumitra lives. Sumitra agreed to talk to us, but made it very clear she was as certain as ever about her inner identity.
अच्छा ये पूछना है तुमसे सुमित्रा मैंने कि
नहीं सुमित्रा मत बोलो मुझसे.
हाँ अभी शिवा ही हो तुम.
हाँ क्यों क्या होकर के इस दुनिया में जो पैदा हो जाता है
हाँ.
वो क्या बार बार बदल जाता है बहन जी.
अच्छा नहीं पहले बदल चुकी हो ना तुम इसलिए
नहीं तो मैं एक बार जब बदल चुकी हूँ जब मैं एक बार शिवा हो चुकी हूँ तो क्या बार बार सुमित्रा
अच्छा,
बन
तो
सकती
तुम
हूँ.
अभी शिवा ही हो.
हाँ और क्या सुमित्रा बन जाऊंगी.
तो सुमित्रा के बारे में तुम कोई बात याद है.
नहीं है नहीं है वो मैंने पहले ही कहा वो अब कह रही.
शिवा के बारे में तो तुम्हें क्या क्या याद है.
वो
शिवा
पहले
के बारे में
हाँ. जैसे बचपन से हाँ 2 बच्चे हैं वो भी आप जानती हो.
अच्छा
हाँ जैसे खत्म हुई थी वो भी मैंने बता दिया था.
Dr. Pasricha also found evidence of changes in personality and behavior. Sumitra, the barefoot village girl who never went to school, has become more like Shiva, the educated daughter of a school teacher.
After the changeover, she started wearing a sari in a different way, very dignified way, and also her chappals, sandals she'll put on, and she started addressing her husband also in a different way. Earlier she used to call him by his sister's name, so-and-so's brother. Then she started calling him in a very sophisticated way. And also she started writing. Before the changeover she could not do anything, means she could barely read and write. But after the changeover she could write sentences and she could speak also. I mean she could read written Hindi.
Dr. Pasricha and her colleagues recognize that where reincarnation is taken seriously, people often have a more tolerant view of unusual behavior.
Excellent. So as was said before, one case of this kind shows us what functions happen from the brain, what functions happen in the soul. And here we see the soul of one has come into another body, and using a completely different brain. And other person did not know how to read or write, and now this person can read and write. Her mannerisms have changed, her accent has changed, different memories. Doesn't know anything of Sumatra, but that case went to court because she was claiming that the children are my children. And the children also started saying, yes, this is my mother, because she knew them and she behaved like the mother. And court has to accept the custody of the children. And yes, it will be nice to hear some thoughts from you. If you want to say, ask.
It's mind-boggling. And what happened to this one soul passed on and moved on, and then the other soul continued
Yes,
in the body?
one, that Sumatra, that soul, that passed away. It went into, it's a journey. But the soul of Shiva, that continued, in this body.
One question, isn't the memory erased when changing bodies?
In this case, what it is, memories always remain in the soul. Just like we all remember things. Maybe at the right time, I might not be able to retrieve the memories. Something I remember, I read yesterday, but right now I may not be able to remember the exact details, names. But memories are there. Tomorrow I might suddenly remember. It is like that. So the functions continue in the soul, and how am I able to retrieve it? That is different. In this case, she remembers everything, every detail. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Yes, and this is very unusual, isn't it? So normally we take a birth in the child's body, and then there's a whole story which I guess gets overlaid. So this usually it gets replaced in a way. And as a young baby, we can't speak about what we remember.
Yes. And so new recording happen never. So there is a phenomena, and we are not easily able to retrieve the past memories.
Some questions. Is it common that souls enter other bodies at this stage of the world cycle?
Common, I might not say. I don't know any case of this kind myself, and not at all. But we hear things that happen, but more a hearsay. Personally, I have not say with certainty. And someone says, "I am such a person. I have come here." I have not seen. Not common, but phenomena is there that can happen. But more important, emphasis I am placing here I'm using this case to understand the role played by the soul and role played by the brain. Because the medical world, as was said, especially with the Patthar science, they attribute to the brain the functions that are happening at the level of the soul. Because, as was said, because anything that is subtle and invisible, they can't understand it. I was reading today an article, and in that it said, this is a study in 2010, means almost 13 years ago. And at that time, they already had 9 million cases of near-death experiences in USA. Just one country, they have estimated 9 million cases of near-death experiences. And 6% of the population have out-of-body experience. And if you speak to these people, they will tell you, that what their experience was, being beyond the body and being alive, and they know what life is more than the body. But the medical world, they say, okay, that is a very good observations, very good statistic, but we can't use this information. They, as if, continue with their they are playing a different music. That is why we need to go beyond this Patthar medical position and understand there is something more than the brain. Now, this is like a one part of our discussion today. I want to come to another subject, a different subject, unless you got any other questions. We'll come to...
There are some questions, but maybe you can answer them in brief.
Let us address the questions.
Transplant recipients can sometimes suddenly get new tastes or new talents. Is this connected to this phenomena?
Possible. What happens is, say, in this transplant, this is speculation. We can only speculate how to explain this. What happens in this transplant cases? Say someone is given a liver of someone else. They find that this person suddenly develops tastes and desires similar to the person's who was a donor. For example, one person never had pizza in his life, but now he likes pizza, and that other person, the donor, he used to like pizza. So where did these tendencies come from? And my explanation here is the soul of that person. He thinks it is his liver, and he has a right to come there. It opens a door for him to use the body. It doesn't create a major shift. Like in this case, one person had died, and Shiva was able to use the body fully. But in some cases, there is a partial, the soul remains, and another one soul is also using the body. Something of this kind can happen and continue for a while. And that explains to me why that suddenly there is a taste, desire, or that is like a continuation from the donor. Usually these transplants happen with the death of the person. Person has died, and then they use his liver or organ of the body.
Yeah. these stories, including the one we watched the video with the Shiva, is it when there's strong attachment to the previous life, also possibly in the speculation of organ donation? Is it about attachment?
Yes, and given that in Iron Age, and the people are attached to their bodies, and so and they feel yes, and they don't want to leave the body; they want to stay in the body.
Does the phenomena of two souls inhabiting one body exist? If so, can there be conflict? Which one operates the body?
We have seen, in some discussions, we have discussed about multiple personalities. And there is no obvious conflict, but it is not a happy life for them. So there is some kind of a peacelessness, that is going on. But in cases where the incarnate soul is a pure soul, this happens in some cases. There's some saintly soul, and as a Mahatma, he uses the body of another. Then in those cases, there is harmony. Depends upon who is processing. The one who is processing himself is impure, and the Ravan is bigger, there will be more peacelessness, I think.
Maybe one more question. Deja vu, is that a memory of a previous life, or could it be?
Yeah, a previous cycle possibly, but different, not a previous cycle, not in line with what we are discussing.
Maybe one more small question to explain the transfer to a body organ during a transplant. Is it like soul is like a super energy and some of the energy gets transferred to the organ? It's a question.
Different opinions, different ways to understand this. As was said earlier, these are different speculations. But
the cognitive function is in the soul, isn't it, rather than in the organ? Yeah, but there are no other questions at this point.
Let us come to, we wanted to discuss about the two hemispheres of the brain and how they function, but we will have opportunity tomorrow to discuss it. Let us create a few minutes for experience now. Create time for once we understand the reality of the soul and its complete independence. As was said, soul is like a pilot. Soul is the driver, and the body is a car that is used by the driver. I'm using this image just to highlight what has happened to the soul in the journey. Soul is very, very lucky, immensely lucky. Just to be immortal means a big thing. Once you are immortal, it frees you from entire pettiness. Putting in other words, when the same soul starts thinking he is the body, he feels he's mortal, and then this panic, subconscious panic kicks in. And then he has to be greedy to survive, and he has to commit sin. Given the option, he would cross the lines. The morality and all goes out of the window. Survival becomes so important, and it goes on. It can enter into violence, and all of this, what we see in the world, it exists just because they think they are mortal. Putting in other words, the moment you discover you are immortal, you remain 100% carefree. You know you are beyond harm, and this story cannot harm anyone. You're completely light. You don't feel you need to cross your morality and cross the line. You don't need to compromise your values. You love, and you are content, and you are happy. There is no reason, not because of story you want to get into anger or violence. It appears so absurd. So this is the life of the invisible player. He remains noble, he remains divine, he remains happy. His life is of love. And we use the word universe is positive. Everyone is immensely rich and noble. That's why they're positive. They are the natural state is of happiness and love. It is a region, it is like a dominating the life feeling is of love. Everyone is loving and everyone is good. Positive universe. And that positive universe continues even now. If we are not experiencing it, it is because we are drawn into this physical world, deceived in the story. Story has got glitter, gold, song, bells, and chat GPT. What else? What else it has got? So there are lots of things within this box, and just sometimes just one song is enough. He is out of the ring. So he gets drawn into this world. That is the only weakness of this soul. These invisible players, the only weakness is he can be deceived by this glitter and gold. If he's powerful, he can resist more. He is not deceived. And if he can resist, he can continue to experience the wonderland, world with God and world of divine souls, world of truth, world of immortality. It is there in front of everyone. He can experience it. At present time, everyone has crossed this line. They are completely, blocked. They can't even experience anything of their wonderland. They can't even experience themselves. That is when we call they are unconscious. And in that state, unconscious state, the ego takes over. In this case also, Sumatra and Shiva, Sumatra left a body. That is why it is like Shiva was able to take over a body. that was dead. That is what, immediately after that, the body is, free, bit like that, this kind of a situation there. So also here, if the invisible prince is not even conscious, then ego takes over. Ego becomes conscious. It is literally like that bizarre situation, and then that is happening in the world at present. And this ego, is it a problem? Ego rules our life, and the ego rules our mind. Is it a problem? It is a big problem, because ego lives in the story. Ego is embodiment of ignorance. Ego is embodiment of bondage. And if he is in such a state, bondage and ignorance and embodiment, it means he has no question, no intention to change it. Stubborn in that state. He thinks it is completely normal to live in that story. And we have institutions, including science, working at that level. The story is all that matters. Don't question anything further. They may write books on truth and this and that. They write books. There are big subjects discussed in the universities, but they are nice subjects. But let us continue with our life. And that ignorance and bondage, that appears completely normal for the ego. So suffering is the end result. You can't avoid this. Unnecessarily, that is the most important thing. Because the whole thing is fabricated. In ignorance, you suffer for nothing. They all remain immortal. They all are from the family of God. They all have the home. But at practical level, they are not having 1 second to experience it. They are worrying about something. They are ready to fight, and they are ready to be greedy or just suffer unnecessarily. Yeah, you want to add anything? You want to say anything? Once we see this map, now we are clearer what needs to be done, and what needs to be done. Our whole aim of meditation, Raj Yoga, is we want to be friend of the soul. We want to be the friend of the truth. We want to come back into truth. We want to be the friend of the true self. It also means we want to remove this ego, false. Whatever that is false and ignorance, we want to remove this. That is the reason we are here. Every minute we are working in this direction the right way, use the right method, and you are going in this, following the principle, you are going up the spiral. Process has started, and it will continue to help you. One minute created today, it helps you tomorrow. It is a bit like that. You start the process, everything, it counts. You continue to move up the spiral. Provided you are not going down the spiral, that has to be stopped. Otherwise, if you are going one step up and two steps back, what do you call that life? Maybe Alison can tell. If you are going 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards, what kind of life is it? Is there a name for it? I like to call it.
Tango life, someone has written.
I would say cha-cha-cha. Cha-cha-cha, you go 2 steps forward and 3 steps backward. Is that right?
Sounds a bit too fun, but yeah, in a negative sort of a way.
So let us create a few minutes of going forward. The moment we use the paras helps us to see this map. That is a amazing thing for us. Just to see this bigger map and to see the physical world as a story. That stops the ego. Ego doesn't progress further. Because you are seeing how absurd to create any kind of bondage in a story. So everything that happened today, from morning till now, it happened in a story. Then we have got nothing to complain about the story. We see it, in that it is not just nice word, but we are seeing whatever has happened. There is nothing to complain. It is no different to some Harry Potter story or Cinderella story. It is just a story. Great story. But this intellect also helps us to come beyond the story. And beyond the story is reality. Beyond the story is silence. This is the world of eternal souls. This is the home of everyone. We are just seeing with the paras. And it is not just a meditation experience. This is the home. Everyone belongs here. This is the true home and true world. Until then, we were in the story world. Now this is the real world and true family. It is not just points of light, true family. Those whom we knew for eternity. This is the home of the true friend. One who is the friend of the soul, friend of truth. One who is always in truth. This world is auspicious. No one needs anything. No one can be harmed. They don't know about harm. It is a world of immortality. That's why auspicious world. It's a region of joy and love. And joy comes with friends. There is contentment, there is peace, there is lightness. Auspicious. All we have done is use the best intellect, and instantly we are into something that is so rich and beautiful. But most important, we have bypassed this lower consciousness. We are not negotiating with ego. The soul is becoming conscious, and soul is observing the world, observing his world, his life. As we continue on our journey, we remember the immensely beautiful truth of everyone. The suggestion is, if there are any comments, we'll hear comments, questions, but then rooms, and then we meet again.
Thank you. I really appreciated the diagnosis. Sometimes it feels like emphasis on ego, but actually it's so liberating, because as you were saying, it's like the other soul is using the body, just like that ego is using all the faculties. So we get, once we can dissect it out, it's just a liberation in life. The questions here are connected to the past videos. Okay, maybe one here. What's the fine line between being pulled and the soul choosing to come from the full awareness of immortality? Is the question clear?
Being pulled, what exactly?
Maybe like interaction. So we're coming into actions either with the compulsion energy or with the full awareness of immortality. I think that's the question.
Ordinarily, the invisible witness, the invisible soul, he is not conscious even. He is so dazed by this glitter and gold, he is gone. That is the Iron Age scenario with most people. And ego is ruling the life. He may know about more immortality, but ego-based life continues. And our aim is to actively bring the invisible soul and help him become conscious. That is the one step, necessary step. And once he is conscious, then he is the one who experiences his wonderland that includes immortality. It is not just knowledge and not just intellectual information, but he experiences the richness of the heart and also richness of the head.
Thank you. Did you say that 95% of thoughts are cyclical? Was that what was shared?
Yes, in one study, they did that sort, and they observed that 95% thoughts are cyclical thoughts. And they said 70% are negative. But I would say, if any thought is cyclical, it is wasteful. We are going in some circle. It is wasteful loop. So they are all 95%. All cyclical thoughts are wasteful thoughts.
Questions connected to the earlier subject. Is it possible someone with a bipolar condition can be because of the two souls?
No, we all got some range of variety of tendencies, and we go into different moods. This happens to everyone. Some have got a bigger range and some have a smaller range, that's all. These cases of multiple personalities and all, they are very, very rare and very distinct. Like you saw in this case, Shiva and Sumatra, it is very, very different personalities.
There are elderly people who can start to behave like children. Is that something that can be explained, or what is happening in the soul?
Yeah, certain part of the brain, it is a bit like, say, there is a car, driving the car, and drive may be very efficient, but if as the car gets older, I can't use some of the functions. Car doesn't go into the third gear or fourth gear, so you have to drive in just some lower gears. Something like that happens, with the brain and the body as it gets older. Certain functions are not working. So some people can behave like children because some other functions are not working, a bit innocent, but some can become a bit angry or depending upon which part of the brain, which functions are affected, so that limits the activities and the expression of the soul, expression of the driver.
It's nice to be able to understand the different phenomena. Question, what happens to those who say passed away with something like Parkinson's? The memories and thoughts, do they still go with the soul?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes what is also seen, someone appears to be is having dementia or something like this, and last day, just before he leaves the body, he is able to remember everything as if there is completely recovered. This is the feeling everyone gets. They may be happy, oh, he has recovered all of a sudden, but then he leaves the body. So they don't realize that this is the last phase. So that is another phenomena observed with some patient. It can be just for a few hours, or in some cases it has been for the whole day. He appeared to be completely recovered and then he leaves the body. So what is possibly happening? There was that detachment from the body, and sorry, is it me who made it a video? Or is it by mistake?
I don't know, but I just realized your video wasn't on. But yeah, we see you now. That's okay. We went beyond.
Mm.
Sorry, did you want to complete?
Yes, so I completed, I think.
Yeah, possibly you just answered this question. How to understand the connection between the brain and the soul for those diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's, but you possibly just answered it.
Yeah.
And is it the brain that can be made more efficient or the soul?
It is always the what is happening in the medical world, medications, and that is working at the level of the brain. They will sort of block certain part of the brain with some chemicals. That is all. The research is happening. Which neurotransmitters can be blocked, which receptors can be blocked, and that combination, let us see what happens, bit like that. And then they might see that in 70% of people, by blocking these receptors, they feel happy, this kind of thing. So it is all working at the level of the brain. What is happening in the spiritual world, you are working on the soul. So soul becomes free from ignorance, and soul discovers his positive universe, and then he remains. He's positive. Then the brain cannot bring out anything different, whether it is completely functioning brain or some receptors are blocked. He will remain positive regardless. If Ravan is removed completely, then regardless of what happens to the brain or what happens to the medications, he will be happy and he will be positive. It may be he may not be very creative depending upon the limitations of the brain, but whatever it is, it will be positive because the essence is positive.
It's so liberating, and I like the statement that said sometimes the limitation of the car is not the limitation of the driver. So you may not be able to go that fast, but the driver may be really Formula One. But so maybe we create a pause now and acknowledging any other questions that have come in between, but we could use some time for sharing. But would you like to suggest a question for the discussion?
The most important is, have we crossed the line? That is, a discussion on the brain is just for our information, but our real work is, have we crossed the line, and which way? Which side of the line we are in?
It might be a short discussion, but I don't know if applying what's been shared, like how does it help in understanding, or trying to connect the subject.
Yeah, the important part is what are the methods we are using to come up the spiral.
Yeah.
What is working for you?
That's helpful, yeah. So we just putting that in the chat, and Heather will be inviting us into rooms. If you're in the wrong room for your language, or if there aren't any companions, just press the help button, and we'll see you in just over 2 minutes. Thank you. Hello, warm welcome back, everyone. Still landing, I think. So, invitation to take a minute to experience that feeling of the full freedom of the soul. Thank you. It would be really nice if you, anyone would like to just type some essence from the discussion, because it will surely enrich everyone. And, you know, this feeling that we're just touching on this subject, but there's so much to understand. And one thing that comes is to have a philosophy that differentiates the soul from the brain is like very healing. So whatever the limitations are. And I remembered something I would like to ask Prashant perhaps to expand on. That you gave an example once where the brain was very damaged, but the person was walking and talking and the doctors couldn't even understand because like a liquefied or some condition. So this really understanding the driver, giving attention, seeing the healthy driver, and we may or may not see it immediately, but the experiencer is having the best. And so that's what was coming up here as the typed, seeing the big picture, seeing the drama as a game, anticipating the game, with some comments. So I'm going to hand over to Prashant, and we have a little time left for practice discussion. Thank
you. Yeah, thank you. In that case you were referring to one case in Nottingham University. One student completed his graduation and passed in A grade, got the top score, and his brain had hydrocephalus, and there was 10% of the gray matter was functioning. That is what they saw afterwards, post-mortem. And but this is not the only case. There are many cases where they see pattern of this kind. You know, that the brain is, you cannot explain by all this performance based upon the brain. Still, they don't know how to explain all this. What is happening? They cannot very good answer in the medical or physiological answers there. Yeah, that is what Sarah was referring to, maybe. But nice to know, once you understand there is a soul driver driver can manage with a minimum. If the driver is good, he can manage with not a very efficient car, but he can reach the destination. Let us create another minute of silence. And the silence for us means it's a rich silence. Silence has value only if the invisible witness becomes conscious. The moment he's conscious, game changes because his world is different. That positive universe, it is not a story. Story, we don't say that is the universe, that's the story. If we see the whole thing, then it's the universe. And when the invisible witness is conscious, he understands. The universe is positive. It's a world of love and joy. Everyone is good. The word good is a nice word. Authentic in virtue. Everyone. This applies to humans, animals. All are loving. And the reason they are like this, they are immortal. And they know they are immortal. More we are experiencing this, we will make it easy for others to experience it. More our focus is in the story with the ego-based passion about the story. It is as if we shine light there and we make it difficult for others to fly. Our thoughts, our time has value. Thank you. Many times we use this image of the ant world on one side, world of ants, ant hill, and the sky on the other side. There are creatures in the sky. Their world is completely different to the creatures in the ant world. And they are all busy in the ant world. They are full-time busy. But they don't even know the sky exists. Ego-based life is like being in the ant world. They are just trying to become a big ant in the ant world, impressed with some sticky junk that they have collected. Totally oblivious to what exists beyond the ant world. And we said earlier, stone intellect, the darkness and ego, absolutely, they have got a absolute, circle. It is like a gravity, collective gravity to hold everyone in that ant world. In a stone intellect, darkness of ignorance, and ego-based life. Ego is one thing that denies you this positive universe. Denies everyone. That is the way things are happening. And in this game, you are understanding. And at the moment you get a glimpse once that there is sky, it is different. Game is different for you. You know now there is something more. I just need to use the right sight, right intellect, right instruments, see more, and sooner or later you will get in the sky. It's a game of a second, but we start the process. What is also great is we already got Paras, and it is in our hands to use it. More we use it, it will become stronger. The whole game is like that. Every time you are playing with it, it is fun, and the game is, you win the game. You discover the sky. You discover the wings. That means the experience follows. Our journey is not imagination. It is not visualization, but experience. And experience happens if it is soul-based. If the soul is making effort, then experience happens. When our spiritual effort has got ego mixed in it, it blocks the spiritual experience. It is possible ego to get mixed in our spiritual effort, and here I am talking of meditation. When you are creating time for meditation and you are becoming soul conscious, you are creating sometimes a period of time, 15 minutes, 1 hour. Is it possible for ego to get mixed? We said if the ego comes, then it will take the form of visualization. But the deeper experiences will be blocked. If you want the deeper experiences, you'll have to fully bypass the ego. Ego will go in time, to be free from ego, an ego-less stage. Final, that is karmatit stage. But at the present time, we need to bypass. The question was, is it possible for ego to make the spiritual effort? Is it possible for us to mix with ego? What is your method to bypass the ego?
One yes came to the question. Another yes. Yeah. It's possible, but the method is the second part of the question, to bypass ego making effort. It's like being in the anthill, isn't it? And visualizing, and the tricky, being in ant consciousness and working at being humble at that level, or being a nice ant. Dedicated to the study, one method. So having the right nutrition for the intellect.
From today, now until tomorrow, definitely let us create this homework. Create many times. We have time. Create many times. You will never regret. And aim is start from the sky. Maybe we'll create some time tomorrow to discuss this a little bit in more detail. But start from the sky. as opposed to starting from here, and trying to go there. Start from the sky and come down. This is what the practice you hear, in some of the commentaries. They say invisible player is visiting this story world. So start from the sky that way. Pay that a little extra attention. And this invisible witness is the invisible traveler. He's a guest here. He has a journey. When you start from there, there is less chance of mixing it with the hairy, mixing it with the things of the story. Less chance to come in the ego. And there is no rush to come in the story. When you are starting from there, see the invisible witness, see him, see his truth clearly. That is what the yoga is. See his life is with the supreme friend. His life is immortal. His world is supreme home, eternal home. His family is divine, royals, noble. They all are good. See it and experience it. Because you started from there, there is no interference from ego, and experience will become, you will deeper. It will continue to become deeper. Starts with glimpses, but it will grow. The only reason experiences are blocked, you open the door for ego to come in. You are saying soul, but you are also mixing it with Harry. But Harry is from the story. Harry is not the soul. So that's why I see this soul clean and separate. As we say, Prashant is part of the story. Right now, Prashant is talking about all these things, but he is part of the story. At the same time, we are seeing the soul who is conscious, and his world we are experiencing. Create that distinction. And his world is a world of wonder and amazement. We are talking here about immortality and the joy, reason. There is no reason for desire even. No reason for disappointment, and life with God and world of truth. It is like on a big scale, all part of the family, they're divine. All are big things. And you're out of the anthill into the world of sky. It's an extraordinary offer, wonder. We need to be prepared, to deal with such a prize. Prize is big, but we need to be prepared to manage that. Excellent. So any final thoughts?
It'd be lovely to hear what the practice that's been shared, how it sits, is it something that you're working with? I feel that I can see the acceptance when I'm seeing third person, this clean soul. You can really jump into the fullness of the soul and the friend of the soul in a way that's not possible when it's the mixed foundation, affirmational level. There's a resistance, and of course, that is the ego. Comment, very insightful. Have a question. Are there checking mechanisms to make one realize one has truly become soul conscious and transformed from being ego conscious, even on a short-term basis?
Yeah. Now, if you are if you are soul conscious, there will be interest, and your experiences are based on the sky. If the ego is there, the passions and emotions are based on the earth. They are based on the ant world. Then it is likely to be ego. There are feelings, passions, or any kind of emotions. They are connected with the ant world. What is happening there? You found some glitter or something. There is excitement. If it is because of the sky, then you are in the soul. Soul is the king during those minutes.
Yeah, well, thank you. And it's second by second, isn't it? I think that helps. That it's not like, you're speaking and you're sort of there. It's like we're all in this game. Now, I love the word self-regard, because you're seeing yourself, the true self. You're just seeing. Regard is just also to see, acknowledge. So we can catch the ego has become dominant, and you give the true self-respect, true regard is to this clean soul, and bring another, see it as a signal to take that jump, shift. So anyone else, anything final? Feel free to share. We also have a drill, but perhaps before that, Prashant, if you have any notional homework, it's always nice to have a collective effort before we meet again tomorrow.
Yes, homework, as we mentioned, come in the experience, and that differentiate between ego-based effort and the soul-based effort. And here we are talking about meditation. Create even 1 minute, 5 minutes, often, and check if ego is getting mixed in your efforts. And if ego is not mixed, guaranteed you will find the depth of experience will become deeper. A distinct difference between visualization and experience. And recently Baba has been underlining, become the authority of experience. So good luck. We'll meet tomorrow.
Certainty, we don't need luck. Yeah, thank you. Nice to experiment together, and we'll finish with a drill transmission from Ravan. Thank you.
उतना ही सहज Ravan.